Hello, everybody. Welcome to another video from the Powerbomb Project. I am your host, Daniel, joined by my other two hosts.
It's Berman.
It's Chris.
Today, we're going to be recapping the past 3 years of AEW, and we're going to be asking the big question: has AEW been a success? We're going to talk about the good, we're going to talk about the bad, and we're going to talk about the elite. So, without further ado, let's begin with talking about what are some of the biggest feuds. Now, when it comes down to some of the biggest feuds, uh, there's so many feuds you can genuinely think of. Here's just I'd say here's some of the feuds that I've written down here. Uh, to say I would consider as some of the biggest feuds in the AEW canon. You got Young Bucks versus Lucha Brothers, who have been rivals throughout AEW canon. Cody Rhodes versus Darby Allin, who has had 4 matches total throughout the existence of 2019 and 2020, and some of them were for the TNT title. Well, one of them was the other match was a tournament match from my memory. So yeah, and then another feud for Cody Rhodes. He had a multi-year feud with Sammy Guevara, a 2019 feud with Chris Jericho. He had a 2020 feud with MJF, 2020 feud with Lance Archer, Brody Lee. Um, then yeah, there's quite a bit to list for that, and then there's also the multi-year feud features Jon Moxley versus Kenny Omega, which took place 1 match in 2019, 1 match in 2020, and 1 match in 2021. And then, of course, Jon Moxley versus Chris Jericho was a huge main event in Revolution 2020, but they've continued their rivalry here and there throughout time. And yeah, you also have Jericho's other rivalries be against the likes of Orange Cassidy, MJF slash the Inner Circle versus Pinnacle story, and most recently his current feud with Eddie Kingston. And yeah, for Kenny Omega, he's had one of the hugest storylines in all of AEW, and that's the multi-year feud with Adam Page, when they started off as just friends, a tag team, but then that results in, Kenny Omega just ultimately wanting the championship gold, while Adam Page felt lost. So, yeah, during his run, he fought the likes of Pac, Orange Cassidy, and Bryan Danielson at Grand Slam in one of AEW's best matches to date. And yeah, simply put, we got also some great tag team feuds as well, like FTR versus Young Bucks in 2020 and 2022. Yeah, other big feuds for the AEW title were Chris Jericho versus Cody Rhodes. You also got Adam Page versus Bryan Danielson. You just got a lot, man. You got a lot. So, yeah, at the end of the day, of course, CM Punk versus MJF is probably the biggest story AEW has had to date. And we could just be here for quite a while. So simply put, within 3 years, I think when it comes down to the amount of feuds we've had, I think it's been a success. Would you guys say so?
100%. It's this is probably one of the best companies right now in wrestling, and this overshoots anything that any wrestling company has done. This has probably have been the best year for them. 100%.
Honestly,
And
I
yeah, what would you say, Chris?
have to agree with you too, greatly, because AEW is refreshing for once, for what I saw. It's not the same old
Yeah,
thing. They're not perfect, mind you, but I'm a constant watcher. I don't really have that much to complain about, but they usually put on bangers from time and time again, not just wrestling wise, but storytelling wise, and that's what really
correct.
makes wrestling great. Again,
Yeah, and the truth is, a lot of these feuds are quite different from each other. You got MJF versus Darby Allin, which I didn't even mention, which is like two completely different people right there. Chris Jericho versus Orange Cassidy, kind of a comedy feud when you kind of think about it. Um, Thunder Rosa versus Britt Baker is one of the best modern feuds in women's wrestling today. So yeah, in terms of feuds, I definitely would say it's a success. So yeah, without further ado, let's dive into the second uh, category, which is the roster. Now, the roster is just absolutely stacked. You know, you got CM Punk, MJF, Darby Allin, Bryan Danielson. Don't worry, I'm not going to name them all because we would be here all day. There are so many amazing, talented wrestlers that the company has invented themselves, and of course, from all other kinds of companies like WWE, New Japan, Impact, etc. This roster is just, it feels like an all-star dream fest at this point. It's just stacked. Uh, and of course, CM Punk returning after over 7 years, being able to accomplish that feat, bringing CM Punk back into the wrestling business was just something incredible. So, yeah, the roster is just, and then as for the woman, I would say that's definitely was rough at first, but I'm starting to see slow improvements over time with signings like Athena and Tony Storm. So honestly, I'm gonna say that the roster is also a success.
100%. All the guys have its own possibilities. Like it's probably one of the best rosters right now. And I think they did the best. And there's probably a lot of other people that sooner or later will come to the AEW and will make them probably make AEW better whenever it happens.
Yeah.
Very true.
So yeah, would you both say success or failure?
Success.
Success as always with Tony
All
Khan.
right. Now, next up, we get to the third category, which is the quality of promos. Now, this is something I'm going to be a bit more, uh, you know, 50-50 on, I guess you can necessarily say, because you got some wrestlers who can cut some amazing promos like MJF. I do feel like if we look at them, if we do look at like a good portion of the roster, I'm not saying all of them, but a good portion of the roster, I feel like they don't know how to cut a decent promo. And I don't really feel like they have the ability to tell a great story. Like, Dante Martin, for example, he is an incredible wrestler if we're looking at an in ring standpoint, but I feel like his mic skills are quite not there yet. And, I could kind of say the same about quite a lot of people on the roster. So I feel like someone could be teaching these people how to improve their promo skills. But maybe there is, maybe there isn't. I don't really know like the nitty gritty details of, this company. But with that being said, though, I do feel like because of there being these lack of promos, people do get this sense that there really are only one or two big stories going on at once, which honestly isn't the truth. But that's kind of how some people kind of see it, and it's understandable. So, would I say it's a complete success? Well, I can't really do down the middle. I gotta say either success or failure. So, if I had to choose, I would say success, but I definitely think some people need to improve on their promo skills if I'm being completely fair.
Yeah, it's pretty fair. Like some people definitely have really bad promos. We experience a good amount of them, mainly Thunder Rosa, definitely Dante Martin, and there's definitely a lot of them. Like MGF is probably the best of any promo person, and there's probably a few of them that don't have good promos. But
Yeah.
there is, like I'd probably say half, no wait, 75% have great promos, but the other percent not that much good promos. That's pretty much how I say it, and definitely I think they succeeded on promos.
Yeah. I mean, that's fair. Personally, if I had to say like a top five in the company on the mic, I'd easily say MJF, Punk, Eddie Kingston, Samoa Joe, and probably William Regal. So, yeah. Uh, Chris, what do you think?
Honestly, dude, with the names like AEW, you can't really go wrong with these type of wrestlers and superstars. So, excuse me. Honestly, AEW's been pretty great when it comes to these kind of things. So, not much I can really say than what you two have already been stating. So, yeah,
All right. So, would you guys determine it as a success or failure?
Success.
success.
All right. Now we move on to number four, which is the match quality. Now, this is something I could definitely defend AEW on. A lot of people will like to comment on AEW, basically saying how a lot of their matches feature guys that just flip around, don't really talk too much, and that's really it. And to some degree, that might be true, but I won't say that's entirely the truth. I definitely can say AEW can definitely be self-aware in some of the little flaws within certain people's wrestling. Like, for example, Jade Cargill has gotten trained by Brian Danielson. Over time, I've been able to see the improvement within her. And I see little improvements within Ruby Soho, and I see little improvements within tons of people, honestly, on the roster. So, if I'm being perfectly fair here, I would have to say it is a success because I am noticing just an improvement over the years. If I'm just being completely honest myself.
Yeah, completely fair. Like there's been a lot of great shows, and I think they did so much to put these shows into great effect. There were some shows that were not 100% like good. There, and I can't remember most of them, but there was a good amount of shows that were like, not that good, but it was okay at best. But like, so again, I'm saying again, like 75% of shows are great. The other percent, uh, on the ish side, I would say. So definitely, they definitely did succeed in this saying weekly shows are always entertaining.
Oh, yeah, yeah, for sure. Uh, so Chris, what would you say?
And honestly, the matches for the most part are pretty excellent. I mean, yeah, it's not going to be perfect because let's be honest here, it's wrestling isn't perfection, but from throughout the years since AEW was formed, most, if not many, of the matches were pretty decent, even on their alternatives, like in the YouTube show. Surprisingly, that I like to watch
Yeah,
from time and time again. They go all out. The wrestlers they hire, they're great. The matches are great, and even when they do mess up, the wrestlers do usually acknowledge it and fix the mistakes, like in a week or two when they first next thing appear or whatever. So
yeah, true.
it's great, dude. AEW's is a success in this way as well too.
Yeah. So now we move on to the next category, which is the importance in championships. First, we look at the AEW Championship. Would you guys say, looking at its 3 year history, success or failure?
Success, definitely.
It's a success with the exception of the new one.
Oh my god, I knew you were going to say it. Let it go.
No,
Yes.
but nah, for real, it's been a success.
Yeah, it's always felt important, in my opinion. So, TNT Championship.
There's no middle option, but to me, I think they success. But it's pretty much always to me. I can't do it in a half. Really, I kind of want to do it in a half because half of the TNT Championship were 100% great, but it has been falling down into a downward spiral for a very long time. So I would love to have this more like in the middle because I think they did. It's always half and half. They kind of succeeded, kind of not on the TNT championship. I don't know
Honestly, if
how
the
you'd
half
say
and
it.
half rule did exist, it would probably be for this championship.
Yeah, really, I can't say anything, but I don't want to say it. They did bad because they didn't really do bad. It's just sometimes they're doing bad. Sometimes they do good. Sometimes it's like always it's always like
It's a
on the
bipolar
even
championship.
balance. Yeah, it's on a scale, like going one side, going to the other side, going on the other. Like it keeps on going.
I'd say that's
To
fair.
me, I'm gonna say is success, just so I can try making it as even as possible.
You know what? Yeah. Honestly, I'm gonna say if we're looking throughout the majority of the 3 years, I think it's been a success. And even though I wasn't the hugest fan of Cody's title runs, I can't really hate on them and say they were bad because they were good. You know, him fighting people every single week, especially people that would become weekly people like Eddie Kingston and Ricky Starks. And yeah, honestly, Darby Allin's reign was fantastic. Brody Lee's reign was legendary. So
Rest
Miro's
in
reign
peace.
was legendary. So yeah, that being said, there's been a lot of legendary reigns and a lot of legendary matches within the TNT title. So I'm gonna say success more than failure. What about you, Chris?
And honestly, same here, with the exception, of course, of the whole stupid Sammy and then this whole Scorpio Sky. But besides those two, this title reign has been pretty successful, and I'm sure with the introduction of Miro and then other AEW superstars, we'll probably get it back to its former glory. So as of right now, it's good, but it's in the filler phase of the TNT title. So yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. Now we go to the AEW Tag Team Championships.
Hmm. I think they did great. I don't think there's a lot of titles that. I don't think there's a lot of bad things that happen. There's not a lot of bad matches, not a lot of bad people who hold it. So I think they definitely succeeded on this one.
You, Chris?
And yeah, I don't really complain with the tag team. Everything's been done correctly so far. So yeah, solid.
Yeah, honestly, I feel like a lot of the teams that have held the tag titles have had fair reigns. Tag team wrestling is treated with a lot of respect in AEW, and that's one of the things I appreciate the most about AEW, if I'm being quite honest, because I feel like tag team wrestling deserves a lot of respect, if I'm being quite honest. So, yeah, with all that being said, um, I'll say success for the tag titles. Now, AEW Women's Championship. This is going to be where it gets controversial.
I think it's hard enough. Like there is a good amount of good champions, but there was only, to me, in my recollection, maybe two champions that I really never was super invested on, and one was the first champion. I can't remember her name. The first
Riho.
champion, Riho. I was never invested with her. I did. I respected her, but I was never really involved with her. And I think Sheeta was the other one. To be all respected, I did like
Yeah,
her, but I never really was really big for her. So those two never really cared. Everyone else, I was fairly up. I was like up and running. I was always happy to watch them go for titles or whatever. So I feel like they succeeded for me.
interesting. Now, before I let Chris take over, I gotta say, I think the main reason why a lot of people didn't like Sheeta as champion, including myself, is because she was actually champion for an entire year, first of all, making her the longest reign champion for any title in AEW. And let's be real, it wasn't very memorable, was it?
Not really. So that's probably fair.
So, yeah, with that being said, her holding the belt for an entire year definitely hurts my opinion on this championship because I felt like her reign wasn't very good. And then Britt Baker's reign afterwards was 10 months. So, almost 2 out of these 3 years was actually Britt Baker and Sheeta in reigns that I felt weren't very good. And Thunder Rosa has not gotten enough TV time recently to make her run feel, as good as it could be. So, that is another huge issue. Now, yeah, with Riho, I wasn't really the biggest fan of her title reign either. Nyla Rose, I didn't really feel like was as developed of a character and presence back then as Nyla Rose is now. Um, so yeah, with all of that being said, I'm not saying I'm. I think the women's division overall has improved over time. I don't think it's quite great yet, but I think it's improving over time. But I'm sorry to say, for its first 3 years, I'm gonna have to consider it a failure. That's just me. So, Chris, what is your opinion? Success or failure?
Honestly, the now I don't mean to be harsh or anything, but I don't know if it's you guys or not, but I feel like the women's championship belt matches don't seem to like really matter on AEW. If I'm being quite honest, like it's more of an afterthought, if anything. Like it's just there, just to be there.
I
It's a
wouldn't go that far if I'm being quite fair.
I know, but
uh,
from what I've experienced and what I've seen, it doesn't seem that important. They're not really pushing it. I'm like, hell, I hear more of the TBS championship, and that's like not even like a year old when that was introduced a year ago. Than the
Yeah, which we're
AEW's belt.
definitely that I think is a certified success so
Mm-hmm.
far. So we don't even have to talk too much about the TBS belt, but
True.
yeah, there's definitely been a problem with the amount of screen time the AEW title uh, has gotten over time. I don't know what it is with that belt, but they definitely need to do a better job of making it feel more important than it is. I will give you that credit.
True.
So, yeah. Failure, I'm assuming, is your answer.
Yeah.
All right. So, on an overall scale, though, they pretty much succeeded for the majority of these championships. Wouldn't you guys agree?
Yeah, I think so.
All right. Now, we move on to the final question here. Do we need to watch the $50 pay per views that happen only 4 times a year? Are they important enough? Are the shows good enough of quality? What do you guys think?
I think yes, and don't get me wrong. This is more biased because I did not pay $50 mainly because I'm going to college, so I'm trying to save my money. But if I was not, I would definitely be paying for the shows because all these shows have been fairly successful. Like I watched 50% of all of them at all the pay-per-views, and I loved every single one of them. So I think it was definitely is definitely worth it to spend $50 for a show like this.
Agreed. So yeah, I'd say success in that route. What would you say, Chris?
Oh, definitely. I would pay money just to see all these pay-per-views. They're so good. We get classics after classics and all their pay-per-views. It's
Yeah,
never a
every
miss.
classic you get at least one fantastic match. So yeah, looking at the overall scale of things in AEW's 3 years, do you believe this company has been a success?
I say yes.
As do I.
Yep, I've grown to love AEW over time and has reignited my passion for wrestling as a whole. So yeah, thank you all so much for watching this episode of the Power Driver. No, it's not an episode of the Power Driver podcast, but it's a video on the project, Powerbound Project. What a botch. I've been Daniel.
I've
Botchamania.
been Berman.
Chris.
We'll see you all in the next video.